evening, Bailey and Addie. Today we are going to be discussing the War of 1812. So tell me, what are some current events that happened?
Good evening, Autumn and Addie. I am so glad that I can meet with you. One of the key details is the Canada invasion. It was when the U.S. managed to burn some supplies.
That's a very important detail, Bailey. Can you tell me some more details?
Another key detail is what happened in 1810 to 1812. It was the Indian attacks on our western settlers, and the number of attacks were increasing quickly and by a lot. Some people thought that it was because the British were encouraging them to attack us.
Yes, I am so glad that you mentioned that. So does impressment go along on what you're talking about as well?
I don't know that, Autumn. So let's bring in our witness, Addie, and find that out.
I am so glad you guys could have me in your podcast of the War of 1812.
Since you're a witness to the War of 1812, can you tell us how it went?
I sure can, Autumn. Lots of impressment happens all the time, as well as fighting. Tons of fighting.
Tell us about what happened in 1812 in Washington, D.C.
Britain went off and invaded Washington with a little difficulty. They also burnt the Capitol building after holding a mock vote.
So, while you're here, if you still have time, I have always wondered about why Dolly Madison was so important in the War of 1812. Could you tell me?
Yeah, sure thing. Britain burnt the White House. Dolly Madison ignored the order to evacuate in order to save many precious artifacts. The most precious thing Dolly Madison had saved was a George Washington portrait.
So you're saying that Dolly Madison's most precious thing was the portrait of George Washington?
That's right, Autumn.
So, Addie, now we're going to talk about the goals and results.
So first impressment ended, but Britain still held rights to do it again. On January 18, 1815, in New Orleans, the treaty traveled slowly. It was the final battle of the war. A U.S. victory led by Andrew Jackson took place 3 weeks after the treaty was signed.
Wow, that's a lot that happened for the results.
We have one last thing we need to discuss.
Okay, I'm ready.
So when did the Star-Spangled Banner become a thing?
The Star-Spangled Banner became in September of 1812.
Who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner?
The Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key as he watched the battle from a British prison ship.
Thank you so much for coming out here, Addie.
Yes, thank you so much, Addie, for coming out here today.
Thank you guys so much for having me on your podcast.